got done watching The Last of Us Episode 4, and this is going to be my spoiler review for, of course, Episode 4. Please Hold On to My Hand is the title of this episode, and if this is your first week watching me, well, I'm a massive Last of Us fan. This is my favorite video game of all time, and it's one of my favorite stories ever told in book, TV, video games, movies, whatever you want to say about it. I'm a giant Last of Us fan, and we just got done doing a watch-along to this episode, and now we're here to talk about it in full spoilers, which I love this episode. Again, every episode has just continued that Last of Us feel, elevated the story, changed out certain things here and there, and also brought back moments that, of course, I love. And this episode in particular, of course, takes us to Kansas City, which is a little bit different than the games. Of course, if you are a game fan, you know that in this element of the story, they go to Pittsburgh. I actually like that they made this change because, like, map-wise, it kind of makes sense, like, specifically where they have to go by the end of the game on the map. So I actually didn't mind the change there. As well as there is a lot of shit that kind of goes down in this one, and specifically what they actually elevate. So let's start out with the beginning of this episode. Of course, we get into it. We see Ellie playing around with the gun, and of course, Bella Ramsey just continues to elevate and be Ellie in every sort of way that we've ever wanted her to be. And I really like that. I like the kind of tone of her playing around with the gun, looking at it, looking like a badass, because that is honestly like what a kid would do in the apocalypse. You believe that. And of course, Joel siphoning for gas. And one of my favorite Easter eggs that I was really hoping to see this season, it was here. And it's the joke book. They had the joke book, and Ellie gives that joke book. And at first, the way that it kind of ties in, there's so many subtle, small things within the writing, and of course, Pedro Pascal's performance that I love. And specifically, one of those is when Ellie tells him the joke the first time, and he thinks it's kind of stupid. And the way that kind of just keeps playing throughout this as like a little bit of a running subtleness to it all. And of course, they go on the road. We get a little bit more of game kind of stuff. He puts in the song, which is actually from the trailer. She finds the porno magazine with the guys in it, and which again is a perfect moment right out of the video game. And I could not get enough of that. I was so invested and loved that moment in particular, and really how they elevated that to a different degree. And that was just, honestly, like, it was just perfect. I like those little Easter eggs and subtlety, and how it adds to Ellie's personality and her curiosity. And of course, they get to Kansas, and it's all barricaded. But one of the freaky things is Joel looks under and sees that there's no cars, which kind of means that this was done on purpose, which leads him into the city. And right away, you see that guy go, "Help, help." And if you're a fan of the game, you knew it was coming. Now, again, what we've kind of started to see is that a lot of stuff is a little bit more smaller scale in this. If you played the game, you obviously know they start driving a bus. They ram a bus into him. And there's not just 2 or 3 guys. There is like a whole group of them, at least 8 to 10. And would I have preferred a little bit more? Sure, why not? But that's not like the point of this story. And when you're trying to do a neck break pacing to everything, you really have to go through this. And in this particular moment, the smart thing is, again, going through those gameplay things, instead of making it feel a little bit repetitive, they put a lot of special moments in this moment, or in this particular sequence. You know, they crash the truck, they get out, he tells Ellie to go hide. He takes out the one dude comes in, Joel kills that guy. Ellie's about to come out, and then another guy ambushes Joel, pushes him against, and Ellie comes out with the gun, just like Chekhov's gun, where you know that gun's gonna go off, and shoots him. And I thought, for me, that was a key moment. Because in the games, Joel's, like, pissed that she had that gun. And I was waiting for, like, Pedro to kind of be pissed off about it. And I think at first, you can feel that, like, he was pissed that she had a gun. But it was just in his performance, his mannerisms, that he felt that. And he tells Ellie to go back into the wall. And pretty much he kills that guy with a knife. Saving the bullet and Brian dying. Which leads to that whole discussion. Again, I waited to talk about this because that camping scene of them talking, of course, we get another joke. But you really start to see that, like, while Pedro, like, mentions that she's just cargo and she's not family, you do see that there's this element to him that he's trying to be not close to her, because the last time he was close to someone her age, it was his daughter, and she died. And I think he's just pushing away everyone, because every time he gets close to someone, they end up dying. And I think that camping scene was great, where he mentions people and things like that. And you kind of get this eagerness that, like, he wants this kid to have a childhood. And in that moment, you know, they have that discussion, that little bar scene. where they're sitting in the bar, and pretty much he's like, he's trying to be a father again. And I think that's interesting. It's going to be interesting once Ellie finds out that he did have a daughter. And I love that moment because the way that he's coming across is like he's just not really good at this, and Ellie even admits that. But, he has the gun moment, which is from the game. He doesn't get mad that she had a gun. He's kind of thankful, but he's not going to say he's thankful. But, if you played the game, there's a part where he has to teach her how to use a rifle in a particular moment. And I don't think we're going to get that, because we got that same moment right here where he's teaching her how to hold the gun correctly. And I love that fatherly-daughter bond that you're starting to see between Joel and Ellie right there, and that brink of humanity that's starting to singer back into Joel, which we'll talk about in a little bit, of course, but with one particular moment that actually brought a tear to my eye. And where it goes to next is, of course, we get this new character. Melanie Lazinski plays her, Kathleen, who is the leader of these Raiders-type characters. Now, if you played the game also, you know that these characters literally have, like, no development. They're just crazy-ass assholes who are just raiding, pillaging everything, and they just want to kill everyone. They're coming after Henry and Sam just for the same factor that they're just people coming through their town. Sam and Henry were with a bigger group. They've killed them all off. They run into Joel and Ellie by the end of this episode, which we'll talk about a little bit and what I think is going to come. I'm not going to get into spoilers about that future part of the game, because for anyone who watches this who's never played the game, I definitely do not want to spoil anything for you. So you are safe on there, just so you know on that part. So the one thing that I did love about this moment was the way that you get to know a little bit more about these Raiders. I like that they're giving a little bit more development. Is a little bit one-dimensional, sure, but there seems to be a little bit of backstory there, specifically when she starts talking to that doctor character and her grievance with Henry. It's more personal. And I love when she comes out and she sees the 3 dead bodies and just assumes it's Henry. And, Perry, played by Jeffrey Price, which is also the voice of Tommy, Joel's brother in the game. Great little cameo there. I love the look of him, how badass he looks. There's some interesting elements there. They find the last hideout that Sam and Henry were there, but when they go underneath, we see the bricks and everything moving, which I can only assume that's a bloater. There's something that happens in the Last of Us Part 2 game that I just do not see them doing this early. Like, there's a thing in there called the Rat King that I just don't see them putting in Season 1. Again, I could be completely wrong. I definitely just think that's going to be a bloater, which is just a massive, overly grown thing. The Rat King is like 10 times that, but I feel like that just with the timeline of everything, that kind of works more particularly, and I'm curious to see how that elevates. I'm assuming we'll see that next week, because after this, we see pretty much Joel and Ellie make it to the building. They go up in the skyscraper, and they get to like the 38th floor. Joel puts out the things, and again, subtle writing is very smart here as you start to learn. There's 2 things I noticed here. There's one where Joel is always laying on the other side of him because Ellie mentions that he can't hear that well out of his right ear. Adding into there as well, which I think is very important, is that now it's more interesting as you see and think back of any time we've seen Joel now sleep in the show. It's that same thing. Anytime he's on his right ear, he definitely doesn't hear anyone coming. It's like he's literally deaf in that ear. And I find that to be an interesting development in here, because the second I saw him rolled over there, I'm like, oh, that's not going to be good, because he can't hear that well. The other thing that I also really loved in this, and the subtleness, is that you see Joel struggling to sleep when they're camping. And what I love about that is because the other time that we did see Joel go to sleep was when he was drugged out. He drank, he drugged himself out, and then he passed out. And it's like, that's the only way that he can sleep. And I really do love those like small little things that really go to Joel's character. And for once, he did actually fall asleep. And a lot of that is because Ellie tells him a joke, and he actually laughs at it. And it's one of the sweetest things that, we've seen Joel smile a bit at Ellie in the game, specifically like later on in the story, but like that was probably like one of the best moments that I've ever seen in this show so far, specifically in their development and what it comes down to Joel and Ellie. And it was sweet. And I think for once, him being able to smile and laugh kind of put that ease to him to actually get a good night's rest, which is abruptly, rudely interrupted by 2 people, one pointing a gun at Joel, one pointing a gun at Ellie, and that is Sam and Henry. Now, I'm not going to get into the storyline. These are 2 very important characters to the Last of Us story, and specifically Ellie's growth. So next week's episode is going to be a big one. This is kind of one of those episodes that very much just sets up what is to come. and I overall really love that. So I assume next week we'll very much just focus on Sam Henry, Kathleen, and Perry, and kind of finish out that entire storyline in Kansas City. I think 6 will probably end up bringing us back into Wyoming. We'll probably end up meeting up with Tommy, and then some certain things happen there. And then I think episode 7, because what we got 7, 8, 9. 7 will end up being the Left Behind storyline with Ellie, which I'll just kind of leave there. That's a very important storyline. 8 will end up being David, and then I think 9 will end up being the entire finale. Of course, because that is the finale. But other than that, I'm not going to get any deeper because I don't want to spoil it for people who have never played the game. So thank you so much again for watching this, guys. I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts. Hit that like and subscribe button for more. And of course, until next time, stay classy.